We're back with another all-terrain tire test. And if there's one thing we know about the all-terrain category, is that the landscape is always changing. Right? Right? Anyways, we have 9 tires in this test, and 6 of them are untested by us.
That's right, 4 are brand new this season, and 1 launched last year. The 6th isn't necessarily new to the market or to the earth, but it's new to our lineup, so of course we're gonna test it, right? Yeah. The last 3 are strong category benchmarks that we've tested in the past, but never on the trusty Tacoma.
2 of the new releases in the test are from the ever-expanding rugged all-terrain category. The Falcon Wildpeak RT01 is the only LT tire in the test, and it's joined by the Kuma Road Venture RT, which is the company's first attempt at a rugged all-terrain tire. Toyo's Open Country RT Trail is a recent release that we haven't been able to test yet, and the Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT has surprised our team with its relative balance and high-level capability in our previous tests. 2 more new tires are from the off-road all-terrain category, and they're both successors to existing products on the market: Goodyear's Wrangler Workhorse AT2 and the Sumitomo Encounter AT2. The Falcon Rubitrek AT01 has been on the market for some time now, but it's new to Tire Rack, and it's also a tire we've been repeatedly asked to test by our customers. The Toyo Open Country AT3 is an enthusiast favorite that needs no introduction, and it's the final off-road all-terrain tire in the test.
The Continental Terrain Contact AT is the lone on-road all-terrain tire in this lineup. We've tested it repeatedly over the last decade, and it's excelled on half-ton trucks and full-size SUVs, and now we're going to find out how it fares on our small Tacoma. Originally, it was scheduled to be one of 2 on-road all-terrain tires in this test, but its competitor was delayed until next year. Still, we kept the Terrain Contact AT in the test as a challenging benchmark for the more off-road capable products in the test.
So 8 of the 9 tires in this test are either off-road all-terrain or rugged all-terrain, which means they skew at least somewhat towards off-road performance or cosmetics at the very least. And our testing is noticeably on-road focused.
That's true, but none of them are specialized or off-road focused products. Right? And we know most are going to spend most of their time on the road. So that's where our testing begins. Continental Terrain Contact AT.
You know what I liked most about the steering on this tire is it felt like it wasn't behind my hands the way that a lot of the tires in this test are. It was just kind of in lockstep with my inputs. I turn my hands and the truck's nose points in the way that I want it to.
Yeah, it's a combination of quick response and kind of good linearity.
Sure. What do you think about the ride quality? We're over some kind of choppy pavement. We're at highway speeds. It's undulating a little bit.
It's great. There's a little more movement, but it's not choppy. It's not very firm at all. It's a nice balance for an all-terrain tire. Yeah, it is an on-road all-terrain,
right?
So I would expect that.
What do you think about noise?
Good, very good. Yeah, especially if there's any little bit of coarseness to kind of elevate the white noise levels, it blends in nicely.
I will say on super smooth surfaces like we're on right now, you hear a little bit. Yeah, a little bit, but I think that's kind of almost a guarantee for any kind of all-terrain tire, even an on-road all-terrain tire. It's the Falcon Rubitrek AT01. It kind of creates some noise everywhere. Nothing super high volume, but just always something. There's a lot of variety. Every new surface is going to give you a new sound, a new tone.
Ride is different. There's more up and down, certainly, than the on-road all-terrain tire.
Yeah, it's never harsh. Right. It's never what I would actually describe as stiff. It's just stiffer than some of the others. Yeah. It just feels like it was just turned up a notch. Yeah. Everything's a little bit more taut. You feel more up and down. You feel more movement through the structure of the vehicle.
That's fine for an off-road all-terrain tire. Yeah. So it's not too bad, right? It's not
unexpected.
So steering on the Rubitrek is light and quick, light and fast.
Yes, it is.
I wish they would either dial up maybe some resistance in the wheel and keep the quickness, or maybe even dial back some response and
something that would make those 2 attributes seemingly pair up a little bit better, right?
But hey, this is a truck tire. That's okay. It's still a relatively good score.
Right, I agree. Falcon Wildpeak RT01. So this tire has the distinction of being the only LT tire in the whole test. And
why, TJ? Why do we test an LT tire?
Sometimes we do.
It's not fair.
It is only available as an LT size in our test size. It is commensurately a little bit stiff. It's turned up another notch from almost anything else in this test.
Because we also run at a slightly higher PSI to match load carrying requirements.
Yeah, load carrying capacity of the non-LT tires in the test. We run them at different PSIs, so they have the same load carrying capacity.
It's stiff, don't get me wrong, but it's not that bad.
I was actually surprised at how stiff it was.
It's stiff.
It was turned up a notch. You felt all cracks, undulations, everything was its own distinct impact. It didn't filter out anything. You feel it all. And you hear exactly what the tread blocks are doing on the road surface, and it's creating noise. I don't want to say it interacts with the surface because it just creates its own noise. It doesn't matter if it's a smooth surface, a coarse surface. It has this two-tone, it's got a staccato, just rapid fire, and also a warble that Brent's never going to do on camera again because the editors used it against him so many times. Make that sound on camera. Yeah, that's that.
Every 2 miles an hour, you hear a decibel increase in volume.
And the steering. Kind of more of the same. It feels much like the Rubitrek AT01. It's light, it's fast, it's pretty quick, but there's no precision, there's no buildup of response. It's a truck, so that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and you say, well, it's a truck, so I mean that's the way it is, but it's not. It's not. We have tires in this test that feel better. This is the Goodyear Wrangler Workhorse AT2.
It is surprisingly cushioned. Surprisingly, I'm going to use your word that I hate, supple.
Oh, it's so supple.
For being an all-terrain tire, an off-road all-terrain tire, it absorbs things. We don't get that jiggle. There's not as much up and down. It really just rounds over impacts of all sizes. Noise is not a high point.
We're by a dump truck, a semi, a box truck, and
a diesel.
Louder than all of them.
You know what I hear? Tires.
So a little loud, a little artifacty, a little too much variety, not as gray toned as we would like. But luckily, and on a high note here, steering is great.
Yes.
It's weighty, it's responsive, it's natural.
Yep.
This is how you
builds
do it.
response with more input. It's quick off the bat, and then as you load it up a little bit more, it responds appropriately in a natural feeling way.
I want to forgive it a little bit on the noise, but man, if that could have been just a little bit better.
Right, it has the ride, it has the steering. Just noise is its only foible.
This is the Tacoma Road Venture RT.
Brand new, just released, rugged all-terrain tire. What do you think about the ride on the Tacoma Road Venture RT?
Yeah, no, the ride on the Tacoma is good. It's you feel the undulations, you feel the cracks, but it doesn't translate into a significant hit. It's not the plushest in the test. It's also not the firmest.
That's true.
So it's found a nice middle ground, at least with these competitors, as far as ride goes. I was happy with the ride.
What about noise?
It was pretty darn good. They don't necessarily have to be loud, but many tires in this category favor more aggressive tread blocks, which can cause some noise issues. The Tacoma's doing a great job of keeping everything moderately even and moderately low volume.
And I will say that for a rugged all-terrain tire, this is on the milder side of the spectrum. The tread pattern, it does have big blocks, but it's relatively tight. There's not a ton of void space in it.
You can't just go to a category and then find your favorite brand and say, this is what I'm doing. There is still a range of performance characteristics within the rugged all-terrain category, within the off-road all-terrain category.
I'll talk about the steering. It is actually pretty nice. It is direct, it's quick to respond. Much like most of the tires in this test, it doesn't really build much response with more input, but it does what I want it to without any argument. It just does, which is nice.
Yeah, for this truck, for an all-terrain tire, especially rugged all-terrain tire, it's very good. So a very balanced showing from the Tacoma. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Mickey Thompson, Baja Boss AT. This is a rugged all-terrain tire, and it's arguably one of the more aggressive appearing tires in this test. And what do you think about the ride?
If, say you did have expectations, big hits, you'd think, wow, this is a rugged all-terrain tire. This is going to shake my teeth loose. This is going to spill my coffee. It doesn't.
It doesn't, right?
Shocker, right? Yeah, some of the bigger bumps. Yeah, that one's. I don't know if that was a big bump because it was so smooth, but that one, that is surprisingly comfortable after driving actually all the time.
Almost every other time in this test. What about noise?
Noise isn't bad. There's some vibrato, some volume, but it doesn't really have any terrible attributes like some of the tires in the test. It's frankly pretty darn good.
Yeah, steering is in the same boat. It is pretty good. It is light. It is quick. It responds as I intended it to. It's nothing that stands out as either good or particularly bad. It just is mid-pack. It's mid-pack ride, mid-pack noise, mid-pack steering.
That's a solid showing for a rugged all-terrain tire.
Right, for what is one of the most aggressive tires in this entire test. Sumitomo Encounter AT2. It's firm. It's not LT firm, but it's pretty stiff.
I think I said on my notes, it's not one of these surprisingly supple tires in this test.
No, it is not. And something that I said in my notes, one of the places that it really differentiates itself, and not in a good way, is over the big bumps. It stands out as noticeably stiff over big impacts. Noise is also not surprisingly good.
It's not a super aggressive looking tire either, and I realize I'm no engineer. Looks are deceiving.
You can't always judge a tire by its looks, but it sounds like it looks more aggressive than it actually does, right? There's variety, there's volume, none of which is, ridiculous or out of the ordinary, but man, it's there, so not a high point. Steering.
Everything is fine.
I'll go as far as saying at highway speeds, I liked it. There was a little bit of a dead spot, and then it responded nicely. So the dead spot kept it from feeling wandery, and then the response makes it feel pretty pointy. But at lower speeds, you felt like you had to load it up quite a bit, and then it responded. So those two things average out to fine, right? Yeah, it's a fine tire, which is fine, except it's also brand new. This is one of the newest tires in this test, and I would like better than fine for a brand new product.
Toyo Open Country AT3.
Ride quality, it's pretty stiff everywhere, right?
It conveys relatively everything. Yeah, it's stiff up and down. There's a lot of up and down. There's no real isolation.
If there's a bump, you are going to feel it. So noise, we both agree on what it does, but we don't necessarily agree on how bad or how egregious it is. It makes the same tones everywhere. Certain places it adds in some variety, whether it's a smooth surface, coarse surface, whatever, but there are these two tones that are just constantly there.
I can deal with a higher level of mixed noise, like a sound machine.
It wasn't all that mixed though, it was just constant.
On the smoother stuff, it does come out, it's not good. On the coarser stuff, it does a better job.
And it's not good.
We both agree it's not great.
Steering though, it's fine.
I was like, what about steering?
This is fine. I mean, it wasn't bad in any way. It wasn't egregious.
Yeah, steering's fine on the Toyo. It's nothing to write home about. It's not inappropriate, but it's not one of the best in the test.
It does happen to be its best attribute though, which I think is saying something right there. Toyo Open Country RT Trail. I'm just going to lead with saying that I hope its real talents lie off-road. The ride, there's an LT tire in this test, and this is the stiffest tire in the test. It hits hard over everything, and it actually introduces some secondary motion.
You feel the little stuff, and you feel the big stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, maybe the casing is super reinforced for crazy off-road things.
It's hurting on noise too.
It's not unacceptable, but man, it's loud everywhere. It gains volume. It has variety. It's like someone in the parking lot's got their new subs, and they're gonna test it out for you.
Yep. Yeah. You feel it behind your ear, not in your ear, but back here somewhere. Yeah. And then the steering at low speeds, it's behind my hands. I add the input, and then it delays, and then it catches up, and then it does what I'm asking it to do. But I just don't want my tire to be behind what I'm telling it to do. I want it to do it as I'm asking, not a moment after I give it the input.
So, in retrospect, it is an aggressive tire in what can be an aggressive performance category.
Yes.
And it's acting like more of a traditional aggressive tire.
Yes.
Not a bad thing.
No.
but
we know it can be
stacking
better.
of tolerances in this test, it's not going to help it on the road portion of our test.
No, definitely not.
After our on-road testing, it was time to evaluate each tire's performance in wet conditions. Around the skid pad, their ultimate lateral grip was tested, and we found a significant spread among the group. The Wrangler Workhorse AT2 led the test in both wet lateral traction and standing water lateral traction, with the Terrain Contact AT and Encounter AT2 close behind, and the Rubitrak AT01 in the mix as well. From there, the Baja Boss AT was a step above its rugged all-terrain competition, matching the Rubitrak AT01 in wet traction and managing a mid-pack finish on the flooded surface. The Open Country AT3 rounded out the off-road all-terrain tires with the results that were good but not a standout performance. The bottom 3 tires were all from the rugged all-terrain category, and of this group, the Road Venture RT led the Wild Peak RT01 on both surfaces. The Open Country RT Trail struggled regardless of water depth, trailing the best in the test by a margin that could immediately be felt from the driver's seat. The Continental pulled ahead of the group in emergency braking from 60 miles per hour. The Encounter AT2, Rubitrak AT01, Open Country AT3, and Workhorse AT2 delivered strong results for the category that were separated by 5 feet. At 176 feet, the Road Venture RT represented the shortest braking distance of the rugged all-terrain tires, but it still required an additional 20 feet to come to a stop compared to the test-leading Continental. The Wild Peak RT01, Baja Boss AT, and Open Country RT Trail all needed more than 180 feet to stop, which puts their braking distances towards the bottom of the category as a whole.
Our wet track testing allows us to determine each tire's dynamic traction in addition to its ability to combine inputs for simulated emergency avoidance maneuvers. While ultimate lap times aren't a primary objective for all-terrain tires, differences in lap times can indicate tires' differing abilities in everything from the daily drive to real-life emergency situations. As you might have guessed based on the objective results, the Terrain Contact AT and Wrangler Workhorse AT2 were closely matched at the top of the lap times chart, and the Encounter AT2 was just 0.2 back from the Continental.
Continental Terrain Contact AT. I like it. I like the way it feels. You know, here through the slalom, just these, kind of small inputs, they feel sharp and direct.
It's responsive.
It's very responsive. Yeah, the outright traction is nice. Balance is good. It's just a solid all-around wet performance.
Yeah, it's an on-road all-terrain, which a lot of them tend to have decent wet performance, and
if they're doing it right, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's nice out here. Traction's good. Traction's solid. Yep. Response is solid.
And I will say the steering response was good, but not to the level of the best in the test. It gets by because it has a lot of traction. The steering was fine.
But it responds to the big inputs.
It does. But
just because it has the traction to do it. You're right. The steering is not fantastic.
It's the Sumitomo Encounter AT2, and you know what? I said it before, and I'll say it again, that I can't quite figure this one out. It feels like the limits are so abrupt that as soon as you step over, either at the front axle or the rear axle, it doesn't do itself any favors.
Its limit is hard to work with,
yes.
Especially in the rear when you spin it up, it just keeps going and going and going, which a lot of tires have done this test in the wet, but this one stood out as particularly egregious.
Right, and I think it's particularly egregious because it actually has traction.
The Rubitrak AT01 was about a half a second slower and was also the last tire to come in under the 38-second mark.
Falken Rubitrak AT01. Overall, not bad.
A little lacking in traction, a little lacking in precision.
Steering precision, that is. Yep. Nothing that was egregious, nothing that was a huge disparity from the best in the test or our control tire, but just all of these little things that added up to it's not as good as the best, but not bad.
The Open Country AT3 and Baja Boss AT were acceptable objectively, and the Road Venture RT was on the borderline.
Toyo Open Country AT3, you have to stay within its limits. It does not like to be overdriven.
It doesn't like to be rushed, and it's actually pretty good in its zone.
Right.
But if you push over, which is somewhat easy to do, it just falls on its face.
Mickey Thompson, Baja Boss AT. The steering is pretty quick, pretty responsive.
It likes a lot of slip angle. Like, you're adding a lot of wheel, but it's responding to it.
On occasion. if you get everything just right with braking in terms of speed and also application, release, all of it, and you're steering right, it feels really magical and it will rail around the corners. More often than not, what happened is you don't get everything 100% correct, and then you just have to give it the big ol' input with lots of slip angle, and then it recovers. Kuma Road Venture RT.
It takes a long time to recover.
Yes, at both the front and the rear, right?
Yeah. So if you mess something up, if you go over, which is really easy to do, you're gonna pay a terrible price.
It steps out at either axle pretty easily, and so it's down on traction, obviously. It's not terrible, but there's definitely a lot better, even within the rugged all-terrain category.
Yep.
At 3 and 4 seconds behind the leader, the Wild Peak RT01 and more noticeably the Open Country RT Trail represent wet performance that's near the bottom of the category and certainly at the bottom of this test.
Falken Wild Peak RT01.
It's fine for a low grip tire because when you do start drifting, it's controllable, but it just wants to drift everywhere.
It's a little slow to respond, so you want to power out sooner, but then it drifts that way. So you try carrying a little bit more speed at corner entry, and then it pushes, and you just have to step back and drive it in the way that its traction demands.
Well, this trail is pavement and it's wet. I think I said in my notes, this is at that point where it is so low on traction that customers would notice.
Yes. There is a palpable moment between when you add your input and when the vehicle responds.
Steering early and much.
Yes.
Braking early and often.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I got a turn up there. I better start now.
Not impressive.
Yeah.
We were not really pleased with this tire, according to our notes.
The Terrain Contact AT once again led the test when it came to our 60-0 emergency braking and lateral traction in the dry. The Encounter AT2 took just 3 feet longer to bring the vehicle to a stop, but it fell further back in skid pad testing. The Rubitrek AT01, Wrangler Workhorse AT2, and Open Country AT3 were separated by a single foot, and the Goodyear led this group in lateral grip. There was another 4 feet between the Wild Peak RT01, Road Venture RT, Baja Boss AT, and Open Country RT Trail, and at 0.73 Gs on the skid pad, the Kuma was just behind the top finishing Continental. The Baja Boss AT required 10 feet longer than the Continental to complete the stop, but it was also competitive laterally. Our emergency lane change maneuver tests each tire's ability to avoid a simulated obstacle on the road and safely return to the original lane of travel. It's performed at 45 miles per hour, and each tire is evaluated on its ability to pass the test in addition to its behavior and subjective characteristics. 3 tires successfully completed the emergency lane change on every attempt. The Terrain Contact AT delivered test-leading dry traction and responsive steering to overcome the Tacoma's ever-present understeer.
All right, Terrain Contact AT. All right, 45.
Perfect.
And back.
Ain't no thing. That was easy.
It was. It really responds. That initial, to get to the first gate, it's really responsive. Then there's a little bit of I don't want to say it's a delay because you can feel the tire respond, but its front axle traction isn't strong enough to immediately come back the opposite direction. There's a little bit of a lag.
Consistent, it's easy to drive, it's a pass every time on the Continental.
You got it.
The Baja Boss AT was down on traction, but the front axle responded quickly to inputs, and it was the only tire in the test to engage the rear axle, which helped pass our test but may be unnerving for drivers in the real world. The Open Country AT3 also didn't provide test-leading traction, but its neutral behavior allowed it to pass the ELC with little effort. Kind of a chunky boy, here we go.
Oh, it is a chunky boy. An aggressive all-terrain tire.
Fine.
Non-event. The thing that I notice most about this tire is with other tires in the test, it's like, you got to be right at 45. They're right on the limit. We're really concentrating hard just to get them to pass. But this one, it's not that hard. It's a non-event.
It doesn't feel fantastic, but there's no bad habits, so that's a win.
That's a win, yeah.
The Wrangler Workhorse AT2 required an update to our inputs, but following this change, passed every time.
Up to 45, big input, another big input, and we are back.
And that's the thing. It understeers like most things out here, but if you just chuck it in there, give it all the wheel like you would in a panic situation, it'll get the job done if you stick with it.
I may have failed my first couple of passes because I wasn't giving it the full beans on the input. And then my lovely co-driver said, hey, you know what you really need to do with this tire? And from that point forward, I passed every time. So if you're in an emergency situation in the Wrangler Workhorse AT2 like this, give it all the wheel.
Yeah?
All the wheel.
It'll get you through.
Yep.
Sumitomo's Encounter AT2 felt reasonably eager and even somewhat athletic, passing every attempt but one. The Wildpeak RT01 never felt proficient at what we were asking it to do, but it passed about 3/4 of the time, relying on understeer to slow the vehicle enough to clear the third gate cleanly. The Road Venture RT managed a 50-50 success rate, but it was at least close on every attempt, with no real bad habits other than significant understeer.
Go up to 45. Close. Almost. All right, we're gonna try it. We're gonna try this one again. When we failed at it, it was close. Every time it was close. It's never like a huge dramatic thing, but you just didn't quite make it back.
Oh! It passed half the time. I said its dynamic traction is better than its steady state traction. So it actually, I was actually somewhat surprised it passed when it needed to. The Open Country RT Trail had 2 successful ELC runs, but its subjective behavior found very little favor with our team.
Toyo Open Country RT Trail, getting up to 45 and eventually it turns.
Don't worry about that grass.
I don't worry about that grass.
That it doesn't care if you're 45 degrees or 270 degrees in the wheel input. If it doesn't respond initially, it's not going to. It's just going to straight line right into the grass, and that's what we found almost every time. I think we said 30% of the time it would make it, and everything would have to align.
Yes, you had to get it just right to pass.
Lastly, the Rubitrek AT01 was an interesting case. At 45 miles per hour, it couldn't pass the test, but even a ½ mile per hour slower, and it could struggle its way through. There we go. And under grass, watch out. There we go. Okay. And that's just what happened. It doesn't have the ultimate traction, doesn't have the dynamic traction. It just couldn't make it at a good 45 miles an hour. We got close at 44, but like you said, I mean, that's the limit.
Right, it's the dividing line. So yeah, zero passes, unfortunately. You know, we had a really great assortment of tires in this test, and it was interesting to see how this group that consisted primarily of more off-road focused products, how it handled our just standard testing protocols.
Yeah, and it's not too surprising that the only on-road all-terrain tire excelled in our testing, but it was still impressive how close the group really was, especially the one rugged all-terrain tire that finished on the podium.
Right?
It's an unavoidable reality that most tires are going to be experienced on the road day in and day out, so their on-road refinement is always critical, even for all-terrain tires. Perhaps unsurprisingly, here the Terrain Contact AT was at the top of the charts, with the Wrangler Workhorse AT2 and Road Venture RT filling out the top 3. Looking at how this group compares to last year's all-terrain test, they fit nicely inside the overall hierarchy. If your top priority is wet traction, the Terrain Contact AT and Wrangler Workhorse AT2 led the way, followed by the Baja Boss AT a step back. Bringing in last year's wet results, we can see a large group from this test is in the top quarter of the charts, but none could overcome the Nitto TerraGrappler G3 at the top. The top 3 tires in the test represent all 3 tire categories, with the on-road all-terrain Continental Terrain Contact AT narrowly edging out the off-road all-terrain Goodyear Wrangler Workhorse AT2 for the top spot. The third step on the podium is occupied by the Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT, which is a rugged all-terrain tire. When we add in last year's test group, the results are pretty evenly distributed, creating an excellent visual overview of the greater all-terrain category as a whole.
We hope you found this test helpful for finding the right all-terrain tire for what, where, and how you drive.
Yep, later on in the year, we're going to test every tire in this group on the ice and in the snow, so be on the lookout for that update in early 2026. In the meantime, if you have any questions or other feedback, leave them in the comments section below. We try to read and respond to as many of those as we can. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe. Until then, as always, thanks for watching.